As I entered the house, just as I had imagined, there were many relatives whom I don't usually meet, in addition to my drunken husband. "Oh, you're here. Bring me some water." Having just arrived at my in-laws' house, I couldn't grasp what was happening. My mother-in-law approached with a smirk on her face, holding a glass in her hand. "Here's a drink for the leech," she said, as she splashed the beer she was holding onto me. "My name is Emily, and I'm 30 years old, working at a company. After graduating from college, I moved away from my hometown and started working in wholesale. Work is going fine, and there are no major difficulties in life. However, there is one big concern. That is, I'm extremely shy. Because of my shyness since childhood, I couldn't make friends easily, and even when someone talked to me, I would give cold responses. I never initiated conversations and always felt nervous when talking to people. Still, I'm truly grateful to those who became my friends. I didn't pay much attention to it at first, but one day while walking in the school corridor, I heard voices talking behind my back. They said I spoke coldly, had a bad attitude, acted superior, and various other things, but I didn't let it bother me. Realizing how others perceived me, my legs went weak. But I couldn't let them see me. I somehow managed to leave the scene. Since that incident, I've been troubled by my poor communication skills. I'm afraid of making others uncomfortable and being talked about behind my back. Eventually, my poor communication skills became my complex. Even as an adult, the problem didn't resolve. Starting a job away from home, I drifted apart from friends I had been with for a long time. We keep in touch, but we can't meet in person, and I feel the loneliness of being alone. Being lonely despite not being able to talk to people is a painful reality for me. These worries only deepened, but I decided to change myself when I got a job. However, reality wasn't so easy. Old habits die hard, and I still couldn't speak well at work. Fortunately, my colleagues at work are warm and often talk to me, even though I'm like this. Thanks to them, I can say that work is going well. However, I understand well that I can't just rely on this environment. So, I decided to be more proactive. As a result, after 2 years of working, I've become less shy than before. I still get nervous, but I can join conversations on my own and communicate better. However, I'm not satisfied with that. Looking back now, it's clear that I've grown a lot since my student days, but I still can't be satisfied because my complex runs deep. Still, one day I met Max, who would be my future husband, and my life and perspective would change dramatically. Max works at a shop that is a client of my company, and it seems that his parents run the shop. One time, when the person in charge was away from the seat, I handled it, which deepened our relationship. Max is easy to talk to, and he happily talked to me, even though we had just met. Whenever I brought up a topic, he always responded with a smile. I've met people like him before, but I felt something special about Max. I wanted to talk to him more, to know more about him, and even though it was just a little conversation, I strangely felt that way. Luckily, Max felt the same way about me. At first, we only casually talked whenever he visited the office, but before I knew it, we exchanged contact information and started socializing outside of work. As we spent time together, our relationship deepened, and we went from friends to lovers. After 2 years of dating, Max proposed to me, and we finally became a married couple. My in-laws were warm-hearted, and I felt truly relieved. "I'll make you even happier," Max said during the proposal, and those words are still deeply engraved in my heart. I was looking forward to the happy life that was about to begin. However, after that, I came to know the true intentions of my husband and in-laws, and faced the harshness of reality. The married life with Max enriched my life even more. When I come home tired from work, Max, whom I love, welcomes me. Just that makes me happy, but before going to bed, he always says kind words to me. Even if it's just a moment of married life, it's a great happiness for me. Max supports me, busy as he is, as I help out at the shop while working at the company. He doesn't show his tiredness. "How's the business?" "It's going fine." "When can you help out next?" I've been helping out at my in-laws' shop a lot, which makes me feel guilty. But I started helping out willingly. At first, I was told, don't worry about it so much, but gradually, I was relied upon more. From arranging products to managing inventory, and sometimes even taking inventory. Both Max and my in-laws have shown me what they value through our conversations. So, I was happy to be able to contribute. But around the time it had been a year since we got married, the situation changed drastically. The management of the shop started to decline. Things were going smoothly until a year ago, but a new large supermarket opened near the store, and the flow of customers gradually dwindled away. Certainly, this situation couldn't be left unattended. Despite implementing measures such as strengthening advertising activities and expanding the product range, the effects seemed to be non-existent. What should we do? Yeah, no kidding. Every time I talked with my in-laws, the sense of urgency in their voices was palpable, and just listening to them made my heart ache. Indeed, this couldn't continue like this. It seemed like my in-laws' expressions were getting darker even a little. And no wonder. The family's store, which had been supported for many years, was on the verge of crisis. But I alone couldn't save the store. Feeling that way, I did my best to improve the store's management. However, even those efforts bore no fruit, and ultimately, we had no choice but to close the store. Perhaps there's some regret lingering, wondering if I could have done something more. During such times, it's also difficult to find words to comfort my depressed in-laws and husband. And with the closure of the store as the trigger, my married life began to crumble significantly. The once warm attitudes of my in-laws started to turn cold. It's because of you that the store went under. During the cleanup after the closure, my mother-in-law suddenly shouted. Stunned by her words, I couldn't find any words to retort. Well. My father-in-law followed suit, showering me with bitter words. Nothing good has happened since you arrived. What are you going to do, you troublemaker? Troublemaker? Unbelievable. Do they really think I brought some sort of bad influence to the house? It was too harsh of an accusation. Those words hurt my heart as if the previous kindness was all a lie. The decline in business due to the new supermarket and the eventual closure were recent events. It's all because of you. Such accusations were unreasonable. How would my husband react to this? Turning around to call out to him as he was engrossed in work, my husband opened his mouth. I think both Mom and Dad are right. Why did I even marry you? If I had married someone else, maybe the store wouldn't have closed. My husband's words were different from the distance I felt from my in-laws, who were already shocked. It's true, this troublemaker. It's unbelievable that you're so calm after ruining our important store. Think about our feelings a bit. There was an unprecedented coldness in my husband's face. With his words, my in-laws added further accusations. I sincerely wished to escape from that situation. But if I did, I would likely face even harsher words. However, I had neither the courage nor the strength to argue back. I could only stand there helplessly. Since that day, the attitudes of my husband and in-laws toward me changed completely. When I come back from work, the sight of my husband welcoming me with a smile, as he used to, was gone. There were no comforting words or cheerful voices talking about the day's events. My in-laws, perhaps with nothing to do after the store closed, or simply enjoying harassing me, clearly increased their frequency of visits to our home. Honestly, their frequent visits were bothersome. Even when they came, they only made sarcastic remarks towards me. The more I look at you, the more plain your face seems. It's embarrassing to have a wife like this. Why did I choose a woman like you? I can't remember. Every time I heard their words, sadness welled up inside me more than anger. If my husband truly forgot why he chose me, it meant he had lost interest in me. Forgetting was too cruel. Even after that, I continued to hear insults from them. It seemed like they deliberately spoke in a way to make me hear. There were times when I retorted, if you keep saying that, do you want a divorce? But the answer I received was unexpected. I can't even think about divorce, Mom. That's right. What would people think if we got divorced? If something happens to Max, you won't take responsibility. Staring sharply at my in-laws, I couldn't find any words. Looking at my husband, he seemed to agree as well. I could only look back at my in-laws in silence. Perhaps I shouldn't have said such things, but I didn't have the courage to propose divorce myself. In the end, all I could do was spend days feeling frustrated. And around 6 months later, my father-in-law fell ill and had to be hospitalized. Max and my in-laws are saying that my father-in-law's illness is also my fault. Including the closure of the store, it seems they want to direct their blame towards me. You're definitely a troublemaker. Dad getting sick and being hospitalized? Dad had always been healthy until now. Everything's been a mess since you came along. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to take responsibility? It's true that I'm worried and sad about Dad's illness. But even if they blame me for it, there's nothing I can do about it. Even if you say that. Shut up, we're the ones in trouble here. My mother-in-law exaggeratedly pretended to be troubled and sighed. Don't cause any more trouble for Mom and Dad. Are you saying it's my fault? Yes, clearly. My husband looked at me with the same severity as my mother-in-law. I now question why my husband married me in the first place. With so much continuous blame, I start doubting my very existence. I wonder if you'll be able to pay Dad's hospital bills. Because of you, the store closed and we're broke. Of course, we both work, so we'll manage. I'm really sorry, it's because of this one. It's fine. Max doesn't need to apologize. The decision to pay for my father-in-law's hospital bills was made without asking for my opinion. I understand that my in-laws are going through a tough time, and there's no issue with paying the hospital bills. But there's a lingering feeling of dissatisfaction that they didn't at least discuss it with me. I don't want to interfere, but I wish we could have discussed the financial burden a bit. What's with that dissatisfied look? Do you have a problem with paying the hospital bills? Dad ended up in the hospital because of you, you know. Well, normally, you'd offer to pay yourself. As Mom said, you really lack consideration. I didn't mean to. Enough with the excuses. Scolded by my mother-in-law and husband, I fell silent. No matter how much I try to explain, it all sounds like excuses, and I know it. Yes. I replied and didn't say anything further. Even after my father-in-law's hospitalization, there was no change in my in-laws or husband's attitudes. If anything, it felt like they got worse. My husband kept bringing up money matters, saying things like, "It's a good thing I have an income, thanks to you ruining Dad's health and him being hospitalized. You're probably living an easy life thanks to my earnings." In reality, my husband's income isn't that much higher, and I earn slightly more. Still, my husband maintains the misconception that he's supporting the household and blames me. I've even shown him my salary, but he refuses to believe me. Every time I visit my father-in-law in the hospital, I'm continuously blamed with, "Do you know whose fault this is?" My mother-in-law also continues to hurl harsh words at me every time she visits our home. I can't take it anymore. I've been thinking about running away and leaving everything behind. But then, a ray of light shone into my life. It happened 3 months after my father-in-law was hospitalized. That day, my husband went to his parents' house in the morning, and I stayed home alone. However, I received a call from my husband in the afternoon. "Hurry up and come over here." His voice clearly indicated that he was drunk. I replied briefly and headed to my in-laws' house. When I arrived and rang the doorbell, my mother-in-law, who seemed to be in high spirits, welcomed me right away. "Oh, you finally made it." She seemed quite intoxicated. The strong scent of whiskey wafted from her. As I entered the house, I saw my drunk husband, along with many relatives I don't usually see. "Oh, you're here. Get me some water." As I arrived at my in-laws' house without understanding what was going on, my mother-in-law approached me with a smirk. She held a glass in her hand. "This freeloader's here." With those words, my mother-in-law splashed the beer she was holding onto me. My mind went blank. I realized I had been drenched in beer as the scent filled the air around me. How do you feel? Hey, Mom, what are you doing? Anger surged within me, but as I wiped the beer off my face, I said, I'm leaving, and left my in-laws' house. As I was leaving, I saw the bewildered faces of the relatives, but I didn't have time to dwell on it. I went back home to prepare to return to my parents' house. Seeing my beer-soaked clothes, the events at my in-laws' house flashed through my mind. With few belongings, packing was quickly done. I could have left immediately, but I wanted to talk to my husband directly, so I waited for his return home. An hour after leaving my in-laws' house, my husband came home out of breath. Why did you leave on your own? You left on your own? Even after getting beer poured on you, you're still leaving? That was just Mom joking around, wasn't it? Is it worth getting so angry over? Joking? Do you really think that excuse flies? If there had been just one word of apology, things might have been different. But in the end, they blame me for leaving. There's nothing more to expect from them. Yeah. Okay, fine, let's get divorced. I can't take it anymore. Huh, divorce out of nowhere? Let's at least talk about it. Talk? It's pointless. In the end, it's just you and your mom blaming me, right? Here, the divorce papers. I've already filled mine out, so you just need to do yours. With that, I took out the divorce papers from my bag and handed them to my husband. Why? I'm serious, preparing divorce papers is normal. Now it's up to you. Wait. Handing the divorce papers to my husband, I left the house. I heard my husband calling out to me from behind, but I didn't turn back. I headed straight to my parents' house. Why didn't you consult with me? When I first talked to my mother over the phone, I could feel her anger even through the line. Feeling my mother's kindness, I couldn't stop crying as I realized how unreliable I had been. When I arrived at my parents' house, they welcomed me with worried looks. Seeing their faces, exhaustion overwhelmed me, and I collapsed right there. I truly felt how great parents are. The next day, my mind began to calm down little by little. I explained the situation to my workplace and took some time off. While resting my body, I started preparing to return to work. I've made a lot, so don't hold back. Yeah, thank you. The day I returned to my parents' house, I didn't have much of an appetite, but the breakfast my mother made the next morning felt especially comforting. Oh, you have an appetite. I haven't been eating much lately. I see. Feel free to relax here. There's nothing here to bother you. Yeah, thank you. As my father said, there are no enemies here. No more being talked about behind my back, no more unpleasant attitudes. It's amazing how normal things can feel so happy. It must be because of my previous life. But that relief was short-lived as the doorbell rang. I'll go check it out, my father said, heading towards the door. As soon as the door opened, I could hear my father shouting. Why are you here? My father's voice, which is usually never raised, was filled with anger. Is Emily here? Please bring her out. It was my husband who had come. Emily isn't here, leave. But Emily's car is here. There's no use hiding her. My husband was also assertive towards my father. Their voices, either willing to give in, grew louder and louder. If I didn't intervene, it wouldn't end. I stood up and headed towards the entrance. Shut up, you're disturbing the neighbors. Go home. Thank you, Dad. It's okay now. Max, what do you want to talk about? Standing in front of my husband, I thanked my father. Please reconsider the divorce. It's troubling to be told that so one-sidedly. One-sided? It seems like it's our fault from the beginning. Huh? Our fault? My husband raised his hand, but realizing his actions, he lowered it. What happened to the divorce papers? There's no way I'd give those to you. I threw them away. What are you talking about? I told you to give them to me. I had thought they might be thrown away, But when it actually happened, I got angry. Can you survive on your own if we get divorced? You've been relying on your parents this whole time. It's thanks to my earnings that you've managed until now. I thought it was selfish of you to say that. What are you talking about? I showed you my salary. You're the one who doubted it was real. Don't worry, I can manage on my own. Anyway, I want a divorce. That's all I wish for. Don't say it's that easy. I'm your husband. Don't act like my husband anymore. If you're going to call me a parasite, divorce is the best option. I'll send the divorce papers again, so go home for now. If you come back, I'll call the police. Police? My husband left looking surprised. He probably won't come to my parents' house for a while now. But he's my husband. I don't know what he'll do next. It seems it'll take some time before I can relax a bit. 2 weeks passed, but I still hadn't divorced my husband. Although I sent the divorce papers, they were torn up. Just when I was thinking about getting a lawyer, I received a message from my husband saying wait. Since my anger had subsided, I thought I'd listen to his last request. I replied okay and waited for my husband's message. A month and a half later, I received a surprising message from my husband. Have you moved? Actually, I had moved to a new house. It was a luxurious condo worth $2 million. I couldn't keep relying on my parents, and I found a suitable house. Of course, I didn't tell my husband. Huh, how do you know that? It doesn't matter how I found out. Explain properly. When I raised my voice, my husband finally began to speak. I hired a private investigator. Huh? Are you serious about hiring a private investigator? My voice echoed in the newly moved, luxurious mansion. I thought you might be cheating because you wanted a divorce. I'm not cheating. Anyway, why did you move to such a big house? I thought you didn't have any money? What I do is none of your business. With that, I hung up the phone and immediately heard loud voices from the other end. Wondering what was going on, I heard my mother-in-law's voice next. You haven't transferred the hospitalization fee. What's going on? What will happen if your father can't be hospitalized because of this? Huh? We're getting divorced, so it doesn't matter anymore. It does matter. Your father ended up in the hospital because of you. Even if you say that, it's annoying. Anger turned into calmness, and I said clearly to my mother-in-law. My changed attitude surprised my mother-in-law a little, but she immediately tried to retort. Since the house is probably already exposed, let's talk directly, okay? I decided to invite my mother-in-law and husband to the house. When is a good time? They seemed bewildered at being invited, but they quickly began to make plans. A week later, my mother-in-law, who came, was wide-eyed at the luxury of the new house. Please, have a seat. I guided them to the sofa and started talking. So, what is it? My mother-in-law quickly started talking about the hospitalization fee, but soon changed the subject to my financial situation. I thought you were cheating. How can you live in such a house? You found out from the private investigator that I'm not cheating, didn't you? Excitedly, my mother-in-law and husband began to talk, but I calmly started telling them the truth. I've been investing in stocks. Huh? I didn't know that. I've been doing it since before we got married. I didn't say anything because it wouldn't make a difference if I did. I also didn't want Max to take it away from me. Did you move with that money? Exactly. I used that money to pay for his hospitalization fee. But since we're divorcing anyway, there's no need for that, right? So, I didn't pay the hospitalization fee. You kept that from me? Originally, I was transferring money from your account to Mom's account. And if you're earning more than me, there's no need to panic, right? Considering the fact that I had been hiding my investment activities, it's strange for him to be so flustered based on his previous statements. Who was it that said they could live because of me? I thought you weren't relying on my income. Huh? Are you trying to play dumb? Don't change your opinions to suit your convenience. And what's with calling me a troublemaker? How did you feel knowing that a troublemaker like me was paying for his hospitalization? Isn't that embarrassing? From the way you're acting, it seems like you still want me to pay for something. It's really the worst, almost childish. But I didn't know about your financial situation. Even so, asking me about his hospitalization fees when you've been calling me a troublemaker and a parasite is strange. Shouldn't you be talking to Max about this kind of thing? But Max said he didn't know, my mother-in-law said, looking at Max. Her gaze seemed to suggest she thought she was blameless. Do you even know if your father is really hospitalized? Why don't you know the exact amount? You leave everything to me to manage, and when there's a problem, it's not your fault. It's all my fault. It's really unbelievable. Why did I ever marry someone like you? As I retorted with all the complaints I had received until now, my husband and mother-in-law turned away from me. Don't you have anything else to say? Then, let's call it a day. Wait. Since neither of them said anything, I tried to end the conversation, but Max's interference came immediately. I don't want a divorce, really. Please, reconsider. I'm asking too. Please think about it again. It's obvious they don't really love me, they're just after my money. It's truly infuriating. I've had enough. I want a divorce. You're just after my money, aren't you? I'm sick of it. Here's the divorce papers. Sign them. If you don't, I have backups. It's pointless to tear them up. If you come to this house again, I'll call the police. With anger boiling inside, I thrust the divorce papers at my husband. He signed them, and together with my mother-in-law, they left the house. Feeling relieved that it was all over, I suddenly felt drained. Later on, the divorce was finalized. I ignored all the annoying messages from my husband and mother-in-law. A lot of emails came complaining about fights with my husband and mother-in-law and my father-in-law's hospitalization fees, but I didn't feel like replying. Even if I heard that life had become difficult, it was no longer my concern. My father-in-law and mother-in-law kept sending similar messages, and I was sick of it. Especially my father-in-law, who tried to evoke sympathy by bringing up his health issues, but I've never even visited him, and I don't even know the real situation. I answered one call from my husband, but all he talked about was money. You're always focused on money. Don't expect me to help you anymore. Figure it out yourself. With that, I hung up the phone. After that, I ignored all calls and messages from my husband and in-laws. As a result, a month after the divorce was finalized, I stopped receiving any messages. It's been a year since the divorce, and I'm enjoying living alone. I'm still not completely used to living in the condo, but I'm not thinking about marriage anymore. But sometimes, I feel lonely being alone, so I decided to get a cute dog. Living with that dog makes me really happy. Both my job and stock investments are going well, and I have no regrets about getting divorced. From now on, I'll continue to live confidently as myself.